Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Rainmaker Stories. Today I have with me Prachi Gangwani. She is a writer, an editor, a trained psychotherapist, certified yoga teacher, and author of Dear Men, Masculinity and Modern Love in Me Too India. Welcome, Prachi. I'm quite excited to get in a conversation with you.
Thank you, Nishta. I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, so Prachi and I go back just before starting the recording. We were discussing that it's been 3 years when we first met in person. Both our debut books were published at the same time with Bloomsbury, and we met during one of those Blue Tokai events. I remember, Prachi. And both our books touch on that gender theme. So we had some interesting questions which came in our way during that conversation. And I think this is a good segue into the first question I have with for you. So, Prachi, when I've read your book, and I remember that your book explores the intersection of masculinity, love, and cultural shifts. So, what was the most surprising or challenging insight you uncovered during your research and writing process?
I think there were those are two different things for me. What was the most surprising and what was the most challenging? And then there's one thing that's probably, both surprising and challenging. So what was most surprising to me was the candor of the men that I interviewed. So I interviewed about 70 men for the book between ages 25 and 45, living in urban India. And when I started these conversations, I did not expect the kind of candor and enthusiasm and just the kind of very often very vulnerable sharing that happened. So that was very surprising for me. I thought I would get politically correct, woke fished answers to things, but most of the men that I interviewed were very candid, and that was great. The most um, shocking thing or challenging thing, rather, was I think just building that rapport with men took a long time. With the people that I interviewed, took a very long time. So that was challenging in terms of the process, but in terms of what I learned, I think the challenging thing, which is both, this is the thing that's both surprising and challenging, is what I realized that a lot of the problems that we have in modern relationships are because of what I call the gender gap in romance, in relationships, right? And what I mean by that is that women have been working on thinking about, talking about, challenging, and changing the gender status quo that we have in society for much longer than men have, right? So we have expanded our lives, our identities, um but men are yet to do that. We have questioned and sort of overthrown many gender specific or genderized expectations that have been around for women, but men are only starting to do that now. And across the board, I think the sentiment of the people, the men that I interviewed, was on a spectrum from men who are very keen to break out of this sort of very heteronormative masculine space that they are in. uh that's one end of the spectrum, and then on the other end of the spectrum, were men who were like just in a way bothered by all of this, right? Like, just like, what is the need to stir things? um I think that I see both as a challenge and as a surprise, that a lot of that this is one of the reasons why, or one of the things that a lot of our modern relationship issues can be explained with. But it's also a huge challenge because no one can, dictate the pace at which someone introspects and then challenges and questions and tries to change a system, a way of being that's been around for so long.
Yeah. And this is so much aligned with the kind of feedback I had when I was for my book. I interviewed women, for instance. So even I was surprised in India, even and I interviewed a lot of them from different stratas, from different experiences. Some who were like just studying, some who were starting in their careers, mid career, senior leaders. But everyone was, like you said, surprisingly, they just maybe on this topic, people are so full that when they have someone like serious trying to ask those pointed questions and comes with a good backing of research and understanding, they open up and
Mm.
they just lay down their challenges. And like in your case, you said that the issues which most couples are facing are maybe when it comes to that relationship gap or a gap in romance. And this is something which in India at times people, oh, it's a taboo topic and we will not talk more about it openly. But it's good that people are just coming out and sort of trying to address these issues. Maybe that intensity varies for men and women, but I think the more we talk about it, the more we can just go to the root causes and try to find a solution for everyone. Yeah. So this leads me to my next question, Prachi. So how has your background as a psychotherapist influenced your approach to storytelling and writing about relationships and societal norms?
Hmm. I think that's a great question. I think it has always been there in terms of, by when I say always been there, I mean, when I started writing. So I worked as a therapist for 3 years full time, and then switched to writing, and I did writing and editing work jobs for about 6, 7 years, 7 years, I think, before coming back to the world of therapy. So I when I started writing, I think the kind of stories that I was interested in doing, the kind of topics that I was drawn to, were very much rooted in, what I had worked on as a therapist. I was working with at a family therapy clinic here in Delhi. So we would work with the family system, young couples, adolescents, etc. So really the focus was always relationships, and that that has always been where I focused as a writer as well, is relationships. I write about relationships, relationship health, sexuality, things like that. So I think the first influence, that it has had is what I want to write about, is very much influenced by my background in psychology. And I think the way I write about it has evolved over time. And initially, if I look back at my work from, say, 5 years ago, I think I was at that time, very keen on, translating sort of esoteric academic thinking into, our everyday conversational language, right? And I'm still very keen on that. But I think another layer has been added now, which is that now I've become very cautious of uh, cautious of making any sort of absolute claims in my writing. So I treat my writing as just this something that will maybe help you self-reflect, and maybe, just shed some light on aspects of your life, of your being, that perhaps are feeling a little uneasy, unresolved right now.
In Prachi, it's good that when both your worlds sort of mesh together. Like when we were talking, just when so I have no background in writing, and gender is something which is very close to my heart from a young age for some reason. I think also to do with the fact that we are two sisters in North India. My paternal side is from Haryana. So it's like
Mm.
as a child, I was always like, oh, I need to do well and make my parents proud. What if like they don't have a boy? Because the society makes you feel like it's an incomplete family unit, even if your parents don't feel that. So maybe that's when I was pregnant at the age of what 20, 28, 29, this all came to me and I said, okay, I want to do something about it and write something about it. And since then, whatever I have done has sort of aligned with the gender aspect of things. Even the series that I do, Rainmaker Stories, where I have these interesting conversations with women, is aligned with that work. So it's great for you as well, like you said, when two three different things in your life are aligning with that one mission in your life. And I think then everything you do is just richer by that because it's complementing each other so well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I love that integration, right? And I think with writing, whoever writes, I think to sustain writing, the craft of writing, you have to really feel strongly about what you're writing, you
True.
know?
That
So,
is so true. So when I was introducing you, Prachi, I noticed you wear like so many hats, right? There is a psychotherapist angle to you, author, editor. You're also a yoga teacher. So, as a certified yoga teacher, how do you integrate yoga principles into your work with clients dealing with anxiety and stress? And do you see yoga as complementary to other traditional therapeutic practices? And are
mm.
you also drawing this yoga angle, let's say, into your writing bit, into your psychotherapist bit? How are you again, integrating all of this?
So I'll start with the last question and then move backwards from there. I have written a bunch of pieces around yoga, various aspects of yoga, meditation, mindfulness, etc. I'm currently working on another book where I'm trying to combine all these three worlds, So there's a little bit of, what I've learned from my yoga practice, a little bit of, what I've learned from the world of psychology, putting it together in the form of writing. So yes, I think, and over the years, I've written quite a few articles on, that draw from yoga. Um, in therapy, I think, so I decided to do my yoga teacher training after having worked as a therapist for about 2 3 years. At that time, this is like 13 14 years ago. I was also very young, at it as a 24 25 year old. You can't really hold space as a therapist. So I wanted to expand what I was able to do and learn more, and just learn more, gain more knowledge. And I was drawn to yoga. And that's when I decided to do my teacher training. And I do see a huge benefit of yoga practices for, mental health, for anxiety, stress, things like that. And I think at that time when I remember when I was doing my yoga teacher training, I was very keen on finding a way of combining the two as a service, therapy and yoga. But I have learned that practically, when someone comes to you for therapy, they don't want to dilute that relationship, and they don't want to, do yoga with you, who they've come to for therapy. Similarly, I think people are more open here in India, at least people are more open to talking about their emotional distress with a yoga teacher rather than working on the body with a therapist, you know um so when I work with someone in therapy, and if I feel that they may benefit from yoga, I will suggest it to them. I will educate them about it. I will tell them that, this is how it can help you. But ultimately, it's their decision whether they want to do it or not. And I've never worked with somebody who I'm, with whom I'm doing both therapy and yoga. It's always one or the other. But I do, if someone that I'm doing therapy with and I see that they can benefit from yoga, we have that conversation, and then they're keen on starting the practice, I would happily help, find a teacher for them and send them to someone else. So yeah, I think it is complementary, definitely. There is huge value in it. But I also want to say here that it's not a replacement for therapy. I think that's where a lot of people get it wrong. There is a physical aspect that one needs to work on, but a lot of our emotional, psychological distress comes from, you know, relationship wounds, childhood experiences, just our social experiences, cultural experiences. As a woman, you have certain struggles. As a man, you have certain struggles. So a yoga practice will not help you make sense of that, right? So it's not a replacement.
Okay. So, Prachi, just like on a tangent, a related question from this, I've of late seen that there are a lot of therapists who are, of course, using the science part of their scientific sort of or a medicinal background while addressing these anxiety and stress issues with clients. But a lot of, especially in India, people are also looking at therapists who bring in some Eastern philosophy to the table. And people are like, yoga is not just about the body, but it's also about the mind, this, like, the spiritual angle to it, and how to handle and balance your emotions. So, do you see an education among the urban folks, at least, when it comes to this aspect? Like, we have this Mahakumbh happening, and you see it's become a global phenomenon. Like, you open any of your social media, and you see influencers from around the globe are here. People are celebrating, okay, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, like, widow is here, and she's staying as a tapaswini for like 10 days and everything. So do you see that people are also using this, not just yoga, but everything to do with Eastern philosophy, and trying to use it as a way to manage stress and anxiety? Do you see awareness around that when you talk to your clients, or when you talk to people around you?
Hmm. Hmm. Um, that's a very difficult and complex and nuanced question, because I think theoretically, yes, very much yoga is a practice ultimately of the mind, right? And the physical practice is just one part of it. So are many other Eastern practices like Buddhism and all of that. It's a whole philosophy of being, of mind, of just a certain way of being, right? Um, but practically, I think what I see more often than not is these practices being used to bypass difficult, messy emotions, difficult, messy situations. Um, yeah, I think that's the best way I can put it. I think that there is a huge gap between the theory of it and between, what really is happening at the ground level. I think there are people I know who I consider to be very well-rounded and very self-aware and very sort of grounded, and who are hardcore yoga practitioners, right? But they don't do only yoga. They have very wholesome, holistic, um, sort of like a tool of things, a kitty of things that they draw from. Many of them are psychologists,
Right.
right? So
Got
they have both these tools.
it.
Some of them are also they do, I mean, a whole bunch of things. So it's not only yoga. So I think you have to be very careful about how you apply these theories, you
Got it.
know? Um, yeah,
And I think, like you said, it's always best, of course, to get that expert advice. Like you said, if someone comes to you for therapy and you feel yoga may help, you direct them in that direction. But you shouldn't
yeah,
just bypass, try to, bypass just using one and say, okay, now let me brush under the carpet, things under
yeah,
the
yeah,
carpet. That's
yeah.
such an important nuance. So, this again takes me a related question to the kind of work and writing that you do, Prachi. So, how do you balance vulnerability and authenticity with the public nature of creating content? Like, you've authored a book, now you're in the process of authoring another one, you're active on Instagram, for instance. So, how do you maintain that balance between vulnerability and authenticity, especially as someone working in the mental health and wellness space?
I have no idea. I think I'm still trying to figure that out. I have a very tortured relationship with social media. Um, I have always been a long form writer, so when I started writing professionally, when I started working with publications, we didn't have social media back then. So long form writing, complex, nuanced articles were very much what one did, right? And that's what I did. And so this shift to social media, short form content, creating content all the time, everything is content. That's very um, uncomfortable for me. And I don't think I have it nailed. I don't think I have an answer to it. I do understand. I think that, when Dear Men came out, there was a lot of publicity that it got. And, there were a lot of interviews, a lot of press coverage, etc. And all of that I shared on social media. And that was probably the only time that I saw a true benefit in being active on social media, where I was like, okay, this is, it's helping people find out about my book. I'm getting readers, etc. So that was great. But I think creating content is a necessity for me at this point more than anything else. And I try to sort of just um, focus on the fact that I'm here to promote something or the other, whether it's Dear Men or, you know, um, the next book I'm working on or whatever. It's nothing else, at this point. So even that feels too much to me many times, I'll be honest. I'm like, why do I have to be here at all? I keep hibernating my account on LinkedIn, and then I'll feel like, oh, it's been 6 months. I don't know what's happening in the world. I should go back on and see what's happening. So yeah, I think I'm not vulnerable on social media. It may appear that I am vulnerable, or at least I feel that I am vulnerable. I don't know if it comes across as that on my Instagram or not, but I have an uncomfortable and a very, very tortured relationship with social media. But I'm learning now more and more to see it and to use it, learning to use it effectively as a tool for
Right.
publicity and marketing. Yeah.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. In fact, I relate the same way, like you said, not a content creator, or it doesn't come naturally to me. But I remember I enjoy the most these social media platforms, be it LinkedIn or Instagram, when I have something tangible to talk about. Like when I started my LinkedIn journey when I wrote the book. Before that, there was nothing on my LinkedIn because I had something tangible to talk about. And now that my this second book, the big book for children, is coming out, I'm like, okay, now again I have something tangible to talk about, or the Rainmaker stories that I do during the month of March. But beyond that, even I struggle. I'm like, okay, what value am I adding? This anyway, like so much content out there. Unless I have something different to bring to the table, I'm not sure what I'm doing there. So I think we're sailing on the same boat when it comes
Absolutely.
to that. And the
That's
takeaway.
very reassuring to hear. Thank you for sharing that. I'm so
Yeah.
reassured because I've been feeling like, what is wrong with me? Why can't I, just get on with it?
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you
So
for
I think
sharing
that's a
that.
takeaway for our listeners, that if you have something, if you are one among us, then don't worry, you're not the only one. But if you have
Absolutely.
something tangible to bring to the table, yes, go ahead and find out ways to put it out there. That way, social media is a great platform to help you find a tribe, to increase your reach. But yeah, don't kill yourself over it, that, oh, I need to be out there every day.
Yeah, yeah.
So this leads me to the last question, Prachi. This has been a great conversation so far. So this is going to be a wisdom sort of question. I've seen that you've contributed to a variety of publications and platforms. What advice would you give to aspiring writers who want to navigate the freelance world while maintaining their unique voice?
Um, I would say uh, find good editors to work with. So rather than, chasing a publication, try to chase editors. Find editors who understand you, understand your voice, and then completely like let go of any arrogance, any egoistic stance for your writing, and become completely humble and learn from them. No matter how experienced you are, and how much you've written, every new editor that you work with will teach you something or the other. That would be one. The other very practical advice for freelancers specifically would be, don't bank on it financially. No, have another stable financial like source of income, because freelance writing in terms of finances is very, very difficult and quite impossible to sustain. Um, I think we also live in a world where, unfortunately, if you're freelancing, you have to put yourself out there a lot. So, whatever way you can, cold emails, social media, networking events, calling people, second, third degree, second degree, third degree, whatever strings you can pull, you have to really, really be out there. And I think that out of, 20 pieces that you send out, if one is getting accepted and 19 are rejected, you're doing fine. you know. So that would be my advice.
I think that's a great advice to anyone who's pursuing the freelance way. And usually people have a very, especially youngsters, because they haven't had any prior experience, they I think come with a very rosy picture of things, because you have all these some of the shows on Netflix who paint like such a cool picture that all you're going to do is just dress up well, cool, look around at things and write something, and it's going to go viral, and then wow, you've just arrived. But it
Yeah.
helps when you get a reality check from someone who has done it for long and can give both sides of the story, so that people can take an advance can take a educated choice on,
Yeah.
like you said, whether it can be taken up full time or not. Like, it helps when you said that, oh, you maybe for some time need something which complements it, uh,
Yeah.
uh, to help you financially while you are pursuing your passion with this sort of a thing. So this was
Yeah.
great, Prachi, and I really enjoyed the conversation with you. And I must say, we covered like a good gamut of things, from
Yes.
writing to yoga to mental health to freelancing. And thank you so much for making the time for this conversation. I learned a lot from this, and I'm sure the listeners also get some interesting tidbits out from the conversation. So thank you so much for taking out the time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Your questions were wonderful and they beautifully integrated, all parts of my professional life. And I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, Prachi. Bye.